Welcome to this week's episode of the Link podcast. Today joining us we have Electra Link's Quality Assurance Manager, Brad Haney. He has been a long-term employee with Electra Link and has been here for almost 30 years. He is going to be sharing his insight into Electra Link, how he's seen it change over the years, and just kind of the different roles that he has played within the Electra Link team. Welcome, Brad, to the Link podcast. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. Yourself?
Good. I'm doing good. Thank you.
Good.
So we'll get right into it. Can you tell me a little bit about your background before coming to Electra Link? You can go back as far as you want. Are you originally from Texas?
I am originally from Texas.
Okay.
I am 54 years old. Originally born in Beaumont.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm used to the Southeast Texas, and that's why I sound like I do. I just haven't been able to shake it. But didn't stay in Beaumont long.
Okay.
We moved around. I don't remember why we moved around. I think my dad just chasing jobs. I mean, never out of Texas, though. I've never lived out of Texas. I think in the Valley, and then we eventually moved back up to and settled in A-Leaf.
Okay. Is that north?
No, it's southwest.
Southwest Texas?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And it was just rice fields back then, you know.
Okay.
So that's where I grew up, elementary, middle school, high school, graduated in 1988. And started working right after that. Didn't go to college. No, wait a minute. I went to like one semester, I think, and just couldn't deal with it.
Yeah.
Couldn't deal with it. Okay.
So after high school, what was your first job, or what did you go into?
After high school. So you get those jobs that because you have to work. Your mom's making you work.
Yeah, fast food restaurant.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, mine wasn't the food industry. It was like Houston Patio and Garden or something.
Okay.
So I was hauling mulch to vehicles.
Yeah.
So that was my job. If you want to call it that. Just getting out of high school, maybe. A little bit in high school, I believe.
Yeah.
But then I don't know how I got this opportunity. I think so. My brother had a boat. My oldest brother had a boat. And I was working on it. I've always been mechanically inclined.
Okay.
So I was working on his boat motor, and I'd gone to a local shop and was asking questions. And I guess the guy thought I was smart, so he offered me a job, at this service-only boat shop, So I was probably there 2 years, learned a lot, but that was my first real job, I guess you'd call it. By far a career, it was definitely a job is all it was, But so that's how I got into the interest of boats, So, but that was my first real job, I guess.
Yeah. So leading up to, because you've been with Electra Link for almost 30 years. Mm-hmm. So before coming to Electra Link, were you at the boat shop, or were you doing something else, or kind of how did I segue? Yeah. How did you segue into Electra Link?
A young fella that worked with me at the repair place went and worked for a competitor of ours.
Okay.
And he knew I was struggling over at the boat shop, so he called me and said, "Hey, Brad," he said, "I'm doing this. I'm pulling this cable. I really don't know what I'm doing, but I'm pulling cable and I'm working for this company and it pays well." He said, "You ought to come try it out." And I said, "Well," I thought about it for a few weeks and I thought, let me do that, So I went and filled out an application. They hired me pretty much within the week.
Okay.
So that's how I started in the industry. Yeah, it was quick, but I didn't know what I was doing. I was I had no idea what we're supposed to do.
Yeah. Okay. So you started in the industry just kind of on a whim.
Yes, absolutely.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. So how long were you with that company?
I think 2 years.
2 years?
I believe I was there 2 years, and I learned just enough to get myself in trouble. And then I think somebody that had worked with me there had moved to Electra Link.
Okay.
And then it was another, give me a call, say, "Hey, Brad, you should come over here. They've got a lot of work, this, that, and the other." So so that's what I did back in 1994.
Okay. And was that out of Houston?
That was out of Houston.
Okay.
Yes, because I've always lived in Houston. I've never lived, I've never lived my adult life, and I call adult, I guess, when you turn 18, I guess, out of Houston. I've always lived in Houston.
Okay. So you were a couple years out of high school, joined Electra Link in Houston.
6 years out of high school.
6 years out of high school.
88 graduated, 94 I started with Electra Link. I think it was May the 9th or May the 6th. I
Okay.
get confused on my anniversary date, but I know it was May, so of 94.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So when you started Electrolink, you were pulling cable,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Okay. So how long were you in the field doing that?
Yeah, so I was at the bottom of the food chain. I mean, I think back then you made $8 an hour, I think is what I
Okay.
made, which sounds scary, today. But there's some fellas that I work with that started but prior to me at Electrolink that
Mhm.
made $6 an hour. I'm like, oh my gosh, I mean, it's just
Yeah.
times have really changed. So
Yeah.
I was just pulling cable. That's all I knew. That's all I knew
Okay.
how to do was pull cable. And it was I worked pulling cable for several years until you learned a little bit more and you learn a little bit
Mhm.
more, and you start moving up the ladder a little bit, to
Yeah.
not outside of the field, but you move that ladder, everybody's like, I want to terminate closets. I want to terminate closets,
Yeah.
So I finally climbed the ladder enough to be in an IDF, terminating
Okay.
cables, and you thought you were just, at the top,
Yeah.
at that point. Yeah.
Making things happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so you were pulling cable, and then kind of what was the next thing you transitioned into?
Well, I don't know. Back then, it was so long ago. I don't know if we had a whole lot of levels. I
Okay.
mean, unlike like now. I mean, we've
Yeah.
got superintendents, we've got foremans, we've got Tech 1, Tech 2. Installers.
Mhm.
We didn't have near that level of the ladder, if you will.
Yeah.
So I think from pulling cable, I went to terminating closets, and then I think I graduated to obviously a foreman. So I was
Yeah.
running jobs then at some point. You start small, and you start
Mhm.
moving up. But yeah, that's the progression. I started running small jobs.
Okay.
Yeah, shortly. I don't know how long it took. It's been so long, I don't remember when I started running jobs. I mean,
Yeah.
probably 2 or 3 years in, maybe.
Okay, so
Not too
fairly
long.
quick.
Yeah, and actually, I started. One of my first jobs with Electrolink was in the industrial side. So I was working in
Okay.
chemical plants, been in
Yeah.
conduit. So I
Okay.
learned so much. I mean, I didn't even know what a piece of conduit was. When I
Yeah.
started with Electrolink. And that's just it. I mean, I guess my mind was just a sponge back then,
Mhm.
and I'd learn quickly.
Yeah.
So before you knew it, I mean, I had a lot of tools in my belt, if you will.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. And now you've worked your way up to quality assurance manager.
Yes,
Quality control manager.
I've seen it all. I think the only thing I haven't done is estimation, which
Okay.
I really don't care anything about it. But so I went from a foreman to, I guess, a project manager.
Okay.
So but there was a big gap there before
Okay.
I became a project manager, but I've been here so long, so I was a project manager for 15 years.
Okay.
Out of that 30, I was a project
Yeah.
manager. So it tells you I wasn't in those early stages very long before I actually climbed the ladder and moved up to an office
Yeah.
job. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
So you've kind of seen, I guess, every aspect from being out in the field to planning things out
Oh
for
gosh.
job sites.
Yeah, because the industry, just like cell phones, just like anything else, has grown so fast
Yeah.
over the years. I mean, so fast. I remember talking about cell phones back when I was in high school. There was no such thing as a cell phone.
Mhm.
You had pagers, and you were just hot snot if you had a pager,
Yeah.
But then you'd have to go find a payphone, to make a phone call. You don't
Yeah.
remember these things.
No, but
I'm sorry. So I live in
I've
an
seen them in
era.
movies.
Yeah, exactly. You've seen the movies. I lived in an era where it was a great era because you saw things advance so fast. I mean, people that are today's youth. I mean, they're born with a phone in their hand.
Yeah.
And a computer, and it's just so funny looking back to see where I came from and where things are now. And 30 years is a long time, but it's so small. When in the big scheme of things, when you look at how far things have advanced,
Yeah.
in my lifetime, it's just unbelievable. It
Yeah.
really is. So the advancements they've made in our industry are just like cell phones and our electronics that we use today.
Yeah.
It's amazing what I've seen over the years.
Yeah.
How antiquated it used to be and how advanced it is now. And just think about 20 years from now, where are we going?
It's crazy to think that it can get more
Exactly.
advanced.
Right. Because I remember the time where cell phones, they used to try to see how small they could get them. I had this little
Yeah.
flip phone that was just barely larger than my ear.
And now they want bigger
That's
phones.
what I want. I've got a phone that's almost as big
You're
as
like, I
my
want
hand.
a big screen.
Exactly right. Bigger. Well, on my boat, we do a lot of fishing, and I remember when I bought my first bass boat years and years ago, the screens were 5 inches, and now we're putting 15-inch screens on our boats, and 2 and 3 and 4 of them at that. I mean, I don't understand. Where's it going to end? Are we going to go back smaller again? Is it going to trend down?
I don't know.
It's unbelievable.
I don't know.
But all I can say is that I've just lived in an unbelievable era, to see things advance like I have. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it really
that's
is.
wild. And that's cool that you've been in the same industry for so long to be able to see all the changes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's longevity. My parents were the same way. I just feel like you dig your roots, and you grow, and there's so many people in today's society that just move around so much, for a dollar, But sometimes if you think about it, if you just dig your roots in and just stay planted and just grow, that you're eventually going to get there, And it just looks better on a resume.
Yeah.
If I was to quit today, I got 30 years at the same company,
That's really impressive.
Yeah,
Most people don't last 5 years at a company.
Exactly.
So
it's unbelievable.
Yeah, which that kind of goes into something I want to ask you is, did you ever think you would be with a company for 30 years?
No. See, when I started this, it was a job, just like the boat. It was a job. That's all it was. And I'm kind of stubborn. I don't like change, which a lot of people my age don't. But I don't know if that's the reason why I stayed. But it eventually, when you get in 5 years and you get in 10 years and you get 15, at some point you've changed that term from a job to a career.
Yeah.
Because you get to my age, it's like, okay, I can't turn around now. What am I going to do? So it's kind of like, it's not that I'm stuck, because I can, I've got so many hobbies. I've got a classic car, I bass fish, I got a boat, so I've got hobbies outside of my career. And I could see myself doing something else. I could see myself working on classic cars. I can see myself as a professional fisherman. I wouldn't make any money because I'm terrible, but I can't see myself being somewhere else, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Where you envision
exactly
yourself.
Right. I can see myself doing something else, but I can't see myself somewhere else. I mean, this is all I know.
Yeah.
This is all I know.
And it's cool that you've kind of had the opportunity to have various roles and see different aspects of Electra Link throughout the years, and not just only be in the field, but also getting to do other things.
Exactly, right, exactly. And in my current position as a quality assurance manager, I love it. I absolutely love it. Sometimes you get burnout in what you do, and that's when change is good, as much as I don't like change. But since I've taken on this new role, I had the opportunity to do this, and I love to talk. I don't know if you can tell, but I love getting out and meeting new people, because when I was stuck in Houston, and I was stuck with just my small circle of people, that's all I knew. I didn't even know the guys that worked for the project managers that sat right next to me, I didn't know those guys.
Yeah.
But now I get the opportunity to go out there and meet these guys and incredible people that I've met. And now I get to travel to Austin and San Antonio and Dallas and build that team and that group of friends, Rob Stanton had asked me if I thought that I was going to miss working directly with my guys. And I said, no, the way I see it, I'm growing my team.
Yeah.
Because now I'm out seeing everybody now, and visiting with everybody. I'll spend at least 20 or 30 minutes just talking to the guys in the field. Not instructing what needs to be done, but just talking to them, And I think they appreciate that.
I think so. I think people like when they have the chance to talk with other people within the company, and you actually get to know people that you're working for, or working under, or working with.
Right.
It makes it more personal.
Yeah, and not just what you're doing today on that job. What are you doing outside of work? What makes you happy? What makes you tick?
Building relationships so that the team can work better.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they know that I care. When I'm out there asking about their family or asking about what they're doing this evening. I think it builds a closer bond. With the office. I'm kind of an extension of the office. I get out there and I kind of bridge that gap between the office and the field.
Yeah, and that's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really important.
Absolutely.
So talk to me a little bit about what you're doing in your position. I know you're traveling from city to city, you're going out on job sites. What are some of the things that you're looking for when you're at job sites, or some of the things that you're talking to the guys about?
Well, one thing I try not to do is look for things that are wrong. You know, I do more of looking for things that are right, you know, and I praise the guys for what they're doing right.
That's good.
You know, so I don't use the word issues. I don't use the word problems because as a PM, I could not stand that. When a guy would approach me and say they have a problem, I said, well, you know, adversity is opportunity, you know, make the best of it, make it right, you know. You know, so I feel like by not using those terms, I think they're a little less standoffish from me. You know, they appreciate what I'm doing, and the more I get out, because I haven't been doing this long now, but the more I get out, I can just tell that the guys, well, they know I've been in the business so long, so they don't mind taking constructive, and I don't even want to use the word criticism, but
feedback.
Yeah, exactly right. You know, on how they could improve things. You know, and maybe even I was talking to a young fella yesterday on a job that I gave him some ideas of what I used to do to create efficiency, and because he was going back to the same spot multiple times, you know, which is not efficient at all. You know, so I'm not just pointing out what he could do better in the ceiling. I'm pointing out how he can work more efficiently as well.
That's really good.
So that's part of my job, you know. You know, I'm a mentor to some of the younger PMs as well, you know. So if they have any questions, my phone's always on, you know, and I'm able to answer anything, you know.
That's really good.
If I can't find the answer, I'll find it, you know. So so I really enjoy my job, you know. Like I said, I don't use those foul words, you know, that are going to scare people off. I just make observations is all I do. I just make observations.
That's really good. Are you enjoying the traveling
from city
to city?
I love it. You know, I like home. You know, do I get homesick? Not so much. You know, I miss my dog. You know, but my daughter's taking care of him. He's fine.
Good.
But I do enjoy it. You know what makes me not mind traveling is the opportunity to see the people. You know, and the guys that I've already built a relationship with, you know, so I get to come back and talk to them. Hey, what have you been doing since I've been gone? You know, and you know everything looks great. You know, and so that helps. You know, being able to see the guys.
You're not visiting strangers.
Exactly,
you're
right.
People you know.
Exactly, you know, and my dad, you know, and I think I get it from my dad because, you know, it was funny because everybody said, you know, Dad never met a stranger. I mean, everywhere we went, he knew somebody, you know. I mean, it's just amazing, you know. And that's how I want to be remembered, you know, is that I've never met a stranger. You know?
You're a friend to everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's really good. So since you have been with Electra Link kind of since almost the very beginning, how have you seen it grow over the years? Because I know that it's a lot bigger than it was 30 years ago.
Man, has it grown. You know, when I first started, and it certainly, I didn't start when Ernie started. I mean, I think he had been in business 9 years prior to me starting. So that sounds like a long time. And I had heard rumors, but I think they're true, that he actually started in a pole barn. I mean, that's where his, you know, that's where office was, you know, where he lived at, you know, that's where they came every morning and they left from there, you know, to take care of work. So, but it wasn't long after that they got a small lease space in like a strip center almost, if you will. And it's right down the street from where our current office is. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's a hole in the wall. And that's where I started back in '94 was in that building.
The boat shed? Or is that different?
No, it's different.
Okay,
so
different
moved from the pole barn, which was where he lived at, over to the, I believe his first official rented, you know, lease space was at this little place where I started. Yeah. And so it's a far cry from where we're at now, you know. But it wasn't like we moved around to 6 different places before we finally found home. While we were in that lease space, he built the current building that we're in now on some property in a business park. But you could fit 3 of the old shops in where we currently, you know, have our
it's big.
Shop. Yeah, exactly. It's big.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So
I've seen it grow. Yeah, I've seen it grow, and I've seen the company grow so much. I mean, just with the company trucks. I mean, I remember back when we first started. I mean, nothing matched. You know, somebody had a little blue Chevrolet truck. I drove this tan van that was about as big as my house that I live in. You know, it was just everything, but that's how you start, you know, you start small and you build, you know, you don't bite off more than you can chew, if you will, you know what I mean? And So we finally graduated to where a couple of guys had some matching trucks, and then 3 guys had matching trucks, and finally we got to where we're at now, and we just have a complete fleet, of service vans, and everything's white, everything matches, So yeah, so when you see us now, you know us, it's not, well, whose blue truck is that, or whose tan van is that,
No, it's very recognizable.
Absolutely.
So when you first started with ElectraLink, did you ever think it was going to grow as much as it has?
No, I mean, I never thought about it because, again, back then it was a job, it wasn't a career. And, and I didn't know where ElectraLink was going. I mean, I could barely spell ElectraLink, I had no idea that it would grow to where it is today, and I'm happy for Ernie. I've been, Ernie and I connected a long time ago, on a personal level, I mean, we had the same interest, and I think we got to know each other early on, so we've been really good friends, outside of work, as well for quite some time now.
That's awesome. I think it's cool that Ernie gets to know his employees.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
That's really good.
Yeah, and I work on his boat, so that doesn't.
That helps
right.
too.
I think that's why I got hired. Yeah,
I think that's it.
Exactly, and that's why I'm not fired, because he's still got a boat. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. What has been one of your favorite parts about working with ElectraLink?
So again, I can picture myself doing something else, but I can't picture myself somewhere else. And it's the amount of people, and it's a shame when I really get to know somebody and they've worked for me for a long time, they've worked with me for a long time. I don't want to say they've worked with me for so long, and then they leave, and it's almost like you're losing a part of your family, I can tell you a couple of guys, that just I hated to see go. I still keep in touch with them, but I'd rather see them every day and work alongside of them.
Yeah.
So just I don't know if I would have as large of a network of friends and colleagues. Let's say if I was working at a boat shop somewhere, if I'd continued doing that, like I said, I could see myself doing it, but I just can't see myself there, just because I love the sport. I love fishing. I love rigging boats. But I wouldn't have built near the network of friends and colleagues that I've built doing even outside of ElectraLink, the customers, the relationships that I've built with customers over the years, and some of them still call me and ask me questions about things,
awesome. That's
Mhm.
awesome. If you don't mind sharing just something, maybe like one of your proudest moments, or just something you're really proud of yourself for accomplishing, maybe something you didn't think you were going to ever accomplish.
So obviously the proudest moment in any person's life is when you have kids,
Yeah.
So my kids are great. They're healthy.
Good.
I've got a 24-year-old, a 20-year-old. I'm 21, 24, 21, and 19. And my 19 is going to college.
That's awesome.
My 24-year-old is a real estate agent and an entrepreneur. I mean, she just branched out all over. And then my middle daughter, she works for a Class A apartment complex, So,
nice.
And prior to that, I just love seeing them grow.
Yeah.
Prior to that, she had a kid's job, as she would say. She was a bev card attendant at a country club.
Okay.
So she recently, I'm so proud of her too. She recently got this job with the apartment complex, and she calls it a big girl job now because she's gone out and bought pantsuits, and all this clothes. Yeah, so it's just great to see them grow,
Yeah,
so,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think just the stuff you've done in your career has been a good example, I'm sure, for your kids.
I hope so. And their mom is pretty stable too. Not as stable as me, but she has kept jobs over the years. Her longevity is really good as well, So hopefully that has, hopefully that's sunk in. My oldest daughter doing what she does, I mean, there's no way she's not like she's worked for a big corporation. She's not going to stay. She kind of does her own thing, but she's making it work, But the biggest thing that I think, having that longevity with a company between her mom and myself, I think the biggest thing they've learned is work ethic. I mean, it's just huge. You ought to see my daughter, my 21-year-old that just moved into this new job. I mean, just excited as she is about it.
That's awesome.
It is the changes she's already making. And she comes home and she will bend my ear for an hour telling me about what she had done that day.
That.
And they're just go-getters, And I'm proud of my mom. I'm proud of my mom because my mom and dad were that same way too.
Yeah.
You know, they stuck with their jobs, you know, and the longevity and the roots that they established, you know.
Yeah.
So it's just every generation of my family, and that's because that's where I learned it. That's where my kids are hopefully learning it. You know, it's just carried on. You know, throughout as many generations that I know of. You know, that I've been, you know, fortunate to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I think that's a really good. I think if that's like a legacy you leave behind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Work ethic and dedication to something.
Yeah. Now they make fun of me. You know, they clown on me all the time, but hopefully when I die, you know, they'll have something to be proud of.
They will. They will. They will. So I want to touch a little bit on maybe a project or something that you've worked on that has kind of stuck with you, whether it was a really challenging project or something that kind of tested your abilities. Kind of anything that sticks out, maybe like first thing that comes to mind of a project that you've had the chance to work on over the years.
Oh gosh, large projects. You know, it's got to be the large ones. You know, I mean,
Ones.
because the small ones are just as satisfying as the large ones. But when you build those large ones, you know, it's something you can stand back and just say, "Man, I did that." You know, you know, and one of my biggest customers in recent memory is Amazon. You know, I mean, and they've grown. I mean, it's just so funny. Here we go with cell phones again. You know, to see the first Amazon that I built in Houston, Texas, how small it was, and it just seems like just a spot now compared to what they're doing now. I mean, 5-story massive buildings, you know, with robots, and they're just continuing to grow, you know, and build this technology, you know, to basically take people out of the workforce is what they're doing.
Which is
it's amazing though, because that little one that I did at the airport many years ago, I can't even tell you how long ago it was. It was as small as my phone, and now the big ones are as big as this conference table. You know, it's just crazy.
They're massive.
It's crazy.
So when you're driving around Texas, are you seeing buildings and projects that you've worked on over the years?
Absolutely. Since I've been here so long, absolutely. I see projects in Dallas. So when I go up to visit Dallas, because before we had a Dallas office, myself and Russell and a handful of other guys that work and live in Houston, we were driving to Dallas to do projects before we had an office open. So we were traveling and staying out there, you know, months at a time and then coming back. So there's projects up there that I can drive by and say, I did that, you know? So, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But every day that I'm in my truck driving around Houston, which is every day, I see something that reminds me of something that I did at one point. You know,
that's awesome. That's so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Could you give our listeners some insight into what makes Electra Link stand out as a service provider or telecommunications provider, and kind of what they should expect if they choose to partner with us on something?
I tell you, what you expect to get from us is quality. Now, again, I've worked for one other small competitor back when I first started. I can't even remember what I did over there. But the biggest thing that I see is the quality of the install. You know, and I tell all the guys that I visit with in the field, I tell them every day, you know what? The customer is going to take for granted that the infrastructure is operational.
Yeah.
But if they walk into an IDF or they see a faceplate crooked, they walk into the IDF and the cable's not dressed well, stuff is not plumb, it's not hung right, it's just all aesthetics, granted, you know, but it plays a big role in what the customers, you know, thought of our company is, you know. And I tell people that every day, you know, that it's all about consistency, you know. You don't have to be great or successful to be consistent, but you do need to be consistent to be great or successful. I've always believed that, you know, from the minute I stepped on the job, you know, because I'm a little obsessive compulsive anyway, you know, and I want things to be perfect, you know. And I tell you one person that's worse than me. I wouldn't say worse, but better than me in that regard is Ernie D'Antoni. I mean, I'm telling you what, when I'm over there working on his boat, it's like, if it's not perfect, you know, I better just pack up and go to the house, you know.
He wants it perfect.
Oh, yes. I mean, screws on faceplates, you know, facing the same direction, you know. I mean, he's something else, you know, and maybe that's where I got some of it. Maybe he rubbed off on me a little bit, you know.
Yeah. And that's something I've heard just talking to other people within the company and even like salespeople and stuff, is that a lot of people say the quality of the work
Absolutely.
is what stands out.
Absolutely. Because if you're not giving the customer a network that works, an infrastructure that works, then they're just going to get somebody else to do it. You know, that to me is the easy part. You know, is testing a cable and saying it's good. You know, and passing it on to the customer.
Yeah.
But taking pride in the way your job looks is a whole different level.
Yeah.
A whole different level, because there's so many people out there that just think that as long as it works, it's okay. You know. So you go that step above and you make it look better than it works.
Yeah, and that's what stands out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's going to keep the customers coming back.
Yeah.
Because that's all they see. Again, they're going to take for granted that it works, you know.
Yeah.
But if it looks good, it's got to work good.
Yeah, because they don't know the technical stuff.
Correct. Yeah.
Which is, I mean.
Yeah, all they know, it's visual.
Yeah.
It's completely visual for the customers half the time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. Okay, kind of like an ending note. What would be some advice you would give someone who is interested in getting into this industry or just starting out as pulling cable or doing AV? What's some advice that you think is important for them to kind of remember as they go to work every day and kind of try to make a career for themselves out of this?
You know, you got to be patient. You know, you've got to be patient. You know, and again, I don't know if it's just my stubbornness and unwilling to change, or if it's my patience, you know, I don't know, that's kept me here. But you got to drive roots, you know, you got to drive roots deep, you know, and if you do, and you stick it out and you show what you have to offer, you're going to grow.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to moving around is not the definition of growing. You know,
No.
You're not going to grow.
No.
You're not going to. You've got to be patient, and you've got to plant your roots, and you got to stick it out, you know. Yeah. You've got to.
That's
you know,
true.
and then you're going to, just like myself, you're going to climb yourself right to the top, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you keep moving around just for monetary reasons, you're never going to climb that ladder, you know? You're always going to have that same position and do the same thing, but just making a little bit more money.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just.
And too, I think when you do stick with something, you have something to show for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what do they have to show? They're going to go fill out a resume at that 10th job that they're going to go to. And they're going to put previous employer. They're going to run out of room on that application on previous employers, you know, and it just doesn't look good. But if I were to leave this company for whatever, I don't know why. I mean, Electra Link burned to the ground, you know, and I filled out a resume or an application, and it's going to show 30 years at the last job. I'm going to get that job before the guy next to me that's been employed 10 different times over the past 10 years, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. Thank you so much, Brad, for joining us on this episode of The Link. I appreciate your time. And thank you to everyone for listening to this week's episode of The Link podcast. Tune in 2 weeks for the next episode. We're going to be talking about the structured cabling division.